Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3494. Today's date is the 18th of July 2025. It's been almost like a night at 10:07 p.m. All right, we directly jump into the question. All right, let's go. Okay, question is, what is the exact cost to acquire one customer and how much do I earn from them? Okay, what exactly is this question? Okay, this question is actually associate with a business point of perspective. Okay, yeah. Why are you asking this business question to yourself? Is because of that ki I just want to know business. I just want to know startup because in the future I have to do those things, and I wanted to aware of all those things regarding about business and startup and things like that. This question is mostly specific related towards mistakes in startup and business. What do you mean by that? In like almost like a 90% of business or startup are fail within a 5 year. There are multiple reasons behind it: management, product, service, cost, everything. These kind of like a assembly question are kind of like a find those mistakes and kind of like a aware of that ki I shouldn't supposed to do such a mistake. So this is kind of like a simple question do I ask to myself regarding about when I start a business or startup, what do I supposed to think? How do I supposed to execute the process so that me, my business, my startup will gonna progress? Okay, yeah. Got it. So this is one of those questions. Okay. Now question is, let me explain. The question is, what is the exact cost to acquire one customer and how much I earn from them? So basically this question is actually associate with how much money that you are spending to get a customer and how much money that you earn from that customer. Okay, yeah. Very simplified question. Okay, example. Um, I'm belong to the India, so my example are mostly associated with the Indian perspective. Okay, yeah. I went to market and I buy one plate of momos. Okay, yeah. So one plate of momo cost me 60 rupees. Okay, veg steam. Okay, yeah. Non-veg veg steam. Sorry, veg steam. Okay, veg steam momos. Okay, yeah. There are multiple types of momos by the way, like non-veg, fried. Okay, fried momos, non-veg momos. Okay, fried steam momos. Okay, yeah. Sorry, chicken fried chicken fried momos, then chicken steam momos and stuff like that. Okay, there are multiple types. Okay, for simple point of perspective, I just buy momos. Okay, yeah, veg steam momo which cost me 60 rupees. Okay, yeah. So if I am a owner, okay, yeah, I have to be kind of like a simply figure it out that ki how much money do I have to spend for one plate of momo and how much money that I am getting from the customer. Okay, yeah. So one thing for sure is that ki you are getting money from the customer is 60 rupees. Okay, yeah. So make sure that those momos are cost less than 60 rupees. What do you mean by that? Okay, let me explain. Profit is actually happened when you are selling a product to a customer to little bit higher price. Example, if I buy a toffee, okay, yeah, and that toffee I buy from kind of like a store which cost me 10 rupees. Okay, yeah, but it's just like that ki for store, if he wanted to make a profit from that toffee, from that candy, he want to get that toffee from wholesaler at the price of 6 to 7 rupees. Okay, yeah. So if he buys 6 to 7 rupees of toffee or candy, then he sell that candy into 10 rupees, he will get 3 rupees of profit. When he get 3 rupees of profit, he will flourish and his business will gonna grow. If that particular person buys that candy or toffee from wholesaler to 10 rupees or maybe 12 rupees, and he is selling those candy to the customer at maybe 8 rupees, then this is not really good equation. That means you are losing money. Okay, yeah, you are losing money. And when you are losing money, that means you are kind of like getting a loss and things like that. Okay, yeah. But the equation that I'm trying to tell you is not as simple as you think. Okay, there are multiple things are actually involved. Specifically, times are really involved. The price is really involved. Everything is kind of like a something involved. Okay, yeah. So the price of the kind of like a something the product is kind of like a varies in multiple perspective. Okay, yeah. And profit is like there are multiple things. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing. When you are kind of like a doing a business or doing a startup, profit doesn't mean like that ki just money. Okay, yeah. Profit is also kind of like a something of value. Okay, yeah. Example. I live in India. Okay, I'm living in local city here. Okay, yeah. If I wanted to buy a Chinese Manchurian, I went to Raghu Chinese Center. Okay, yeah. Why? Raghu is like one of the best. Okay, yeah. The way that he make Chinese noodles, the way that he makes the Chinese Manchurian, Hakka noodles, really amazing. Okay, yeah. And I just only buy the Chinese from that guy, that Raghu guy. Okay, yeah. Why? Because he is kind of like a somebody really special. By the way, in here in my local city, there are so many Chinese centers, so many other things. But when I wanted to buy Chinese, I always went to the Raghu. Why? Because the way that he makes is really good. So basically, is this thing the Raghu is kind of like a somebody not getting a profit as kind of like a somebody from money point of perspective, no, but he is kind of like a gaining a profit from value point of perspective, because I am a customer and I value the effort that he puts while he is making that Chinese. Okay, yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you, profit is not just meant for money. Sometimes it meant for publicity. Sometimes it meant for effort. Sometimes it meant for kind of like a sort of how much that particular person make that particular product so good. Okay, yeah. And when as a customer I relate with that kind of like a somebody owner who's kind of like a making such a product which is really good and really great. Okay, yeah, he always spend money on that owner. He will not gonna spend money on someone else. If you still not really understand, let me explain. Okay, yeah. So there are let's just say toothpaste. Okay, yeah. What kind of like a toothpaste that you know? Okay, I'm belong to the also India, so also I'm kind of like giving the example from Indian point of perspective. So we have multiple brands who are actually selling the toothpaste. First is a Colgate, Close Up, Pepsodent, um, Patanjali. Okay, these are kind of like only four Pepsodents that I know at the moment. Okay, yeah. So and there is kind of like a very random company who is kind of like a somebody selling the toothpaste. Okay, yeah, but you don't know the name, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. You went to the supermarket, there are multiple toothpaste, Close Up, Colgate, multiple things. Okay, yeah. And then there is also another toothpaste that you haven't really heard of it. Okay, yeah. So would you supposed to buy that kind of like a unknown toothpaste that you haven't really heard of it? No, you don't. You always gonna buy a something like a Colgate or Pepsodent or Close Up or things like that, right? Yeah, that you actually heard those name and you definitely gonna buy those name. Almost like a 99% that you gonna buy from one of those toothpaste that you already heard. You will not gonna buy something that you never really heard. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing. Sometimes the marketing is also really matter. How much that product is kind of like a market their product, how much that product is actually seen in real world and things like that. Because when we buy stuff, we are not just buying from just like take the money and get the product. No, we buy the product or we basically this thing, the decision of buying this product is actually happen inside of our brain. Okay, yeah. And it kind of like a manipulate by multiple ways. First of all, marketing. Another thing is that how much that particular person is kind of like a provide that service or product, how much good that is. Okay, like a basically quality. Okay, things and something like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing: the profit is not only meant from just money point of perspective. No, money is a kind of like a somebody one of the last thing. Okay, yeah, one of the last thing. Okay, as a product, like if I am kind of like a somebody selling some sort of product, I have to make sure that my product is unique. Okay, another thing is that I wanted to make sure the product that I'm selling is one of the good, one of the great, one of the best. Okay, yeah, quality should supposed to be top notch. This is the thing that I wanted to make sure. Okay, yeah, and then I would kind of like something sell those product to the customer. But let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah, there are multiple things. Okay, yeah, if you are kind of like consider that you wanted to make the product so good, so great, and so amazing, then the cost of the product is increased. When the cost of the product is increased, then probably you have to sell those product to the higher price. If you are selling those product in higher price, you will get really less customer. Okay, yeah, because very less amount of people will gonna spend more amount of money on your product. They will not gonna do that. Okay, yeah, so probably is this thing that key you will gonna get little less kind of like a customer. Okay, yeah, yeah, you will gain a kind of like a something value that your product is really good and really great, but most of the customer can't really afford that thing. Okay, yeah, so you have to decide that are you selling the premier product or are you selling a kind of like a something which product, like you have to describe. Example, okay, yeah, iPhone, let's say iPhone is a kind of like a product, Apple is a company, right? So basically is this thing, the Apple is kind of like a simply focus on their product should supposed to be good, great, amazing, the quality is always gonna top notch. Okay, yeah, and if they are kind of like a doing this thing, if they are kind of like a making such a product is so amazing, then cost of the product is increased. The cost of the product is increased, that means they have to sell this product in really higher price. Okay, yeah, when those product are actually selling those higher price, then probably very less amount of people can't afford that very expensive phone, so very less amount of customer will gonna buy. Okay, yeah, but okay, yeah, it's not just kind of like a simply phone. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing, there are multiple things are actually involved. I'm living also India. I'm kind of like a somebody telling the kind of like a somebody perspective from Indian point of perspective. Okay, yeah, why? Because like I never really been on another country, so I'm not really sure. So I'm trying to tell you from Indian point of perspective. Okay, yeah. I'm not saying that expensive product will gonna sell really less. No, nothing will happen. Okay, yeah. Expensive product create its own aura. What's the aura? Aura means like that a kind of like a simply a status or things like that. As I mentioned, let me tell you one thing. The product that customer own is not the product that kind of like a something he want. The product he want to kind of like a showcase that he is kind of like a something really good. Example, okay, yeah. As I mentioned, iPhone is a premium product. Okay, yeah, very higher price, very less amount of people is actually buy. Okay, yeah, so when there is a very less amount of people is actually buy, that means the product became so exclusive. Okay, yeah, when the product became so exclusive, when the like some people is actually buy, the people can afford that kind of like a only phone that expensive, people are actually looking at them that this guy who actually owns this very expensive phone, that means this guy is really rich person. A perspective, dude. Okay, yeah. Okay, perspective. Like you have to think from very different angle. Okay, it's not really hard, you already knew it. An iPhone is a kind of like a something very a premium product. It's kind of like a consider not as a product but as a kind of like a status product in India. Okay, yeah. Okay, like basically the people who actually own the iPhone, they are kind of like considered to be a higher person, or people from higher society, they are actually afford this very expensive phone. So get it. Okay, yeah. In a US point of perspective, okay, by the way, the iPhone, like the stuff that I'm kind of like putting the example, iPhone is from Indian point of perspective. In US, it's a very different game, because in US, iPhone is a very, very, very common over there. Okay, yeah. And basically in US, iPhone is not considered to be a kind of like a simply a premium product, is not considered to be a kind of like a simply a like a basically premium status kind of like a product. No, nothing at all. They are kind of like a simply just a phone. iPhone is just a phone. But in India, iPhone is kind of like a something that key one of the kind of like a something premium product that only expensive people or the rich people is actually own that particular product. Whatever. So what is actually my question? Yeah, my question was that key as a kind of like a simply we are not just focus on money. Okay, yeah, profit is not just kind of like just for money point of perspective. We are profit are came from multiple ways: the value, the marketing, how much premium product is your, how much, yeah, like he said. Okay, yeah. But these are kind of like a simply the stuff that I mentioned. These are kind of like a simply concept for kind of like a simply very bigger company. Okay, yeah, like a basically the iPhone level company or Apple level of company. Yeah, if I am kind of like a talking about kind of like a something the just a just a kind of like a simply bandiwala who is kind of like a selling a lemonade. Okay, yeah. So I'm kind of like a simply try to explain from the bandiwala point of perspective. Okay, yeah. What exactly is this thing? First of all, let me explain what is actually bandiwala. Also, I'm belong to the India, so I'm my example is also associated with the Indian point of perspective. I don't know you might gonna understand this thing, but okay, I'm trying to explain. Okay, so there is a bandiwala. That bandiwala is actually selling the lemonade. Okay, yeah. The lemonade. Okay, this is the same example cost as the momos, but momos is kind of like a some little bit something really that key complicated. Okay, not just complicated. Okay, yeah, just take a momos example. Okay, yeah, like a wire kind of like only changing the example. Let's take a momos example. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing the momos is cost 60 rupees. I am the kind of like a customer. I give that money to that momo guy 60 rupees. Okay, yeah. Make sure that ki whatever the cost required to make this momo is less than 60, means like that the ingredient that they are used in it, like a vegetable, all those things. Okay, yeah. Then every ingredient. Okay, yeah. And the and the effort. Okay, yeah. Like basically this thing when you make a momos, there are multiple things like it include the cost is including cost of ingredient, the cost of effort for making that ingredient into the momos. Okay, I get it. And make sure that that momos should supposed to be make less than 60 rupees. How this gonna happen? Well, this actually happened when you kind of like simply making the momos in large quantity. Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay, so if you are kind of like a decided that ki you have to make the momo when the customer is arrive. Okay, yeah. If you are kind of like a doing it that, then it will become kind of like a something very expensive for you. Because let me tell you one thing: every time you are trying to make, every time this is not gonna efficient. Okay, yeah. Still this momos example is not kind of like a simply properly explained. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna uh, go through kind of like a simply another example. Let's say biscuit. Okay, yeah. A candy example like the previous mention is a candy. Okay, yeah. So let me tell you one thing: I am a kind of like a wholesaler. Sorry, I am a kind of like a simply store owner. Okay, yeah. And I'm kind of like a selling the candy. Okay, yeah. Let's say candy which cost 10 rupees. Okay, yeah. First of all, where that candy came from? That candy came from wholesaler. Okay, yeah. And like basically this thing also uh, all the product that you are actually seen on supermarket or store or something like that, those are actually came from wholesaler or factory. Like basically if the supermarket, then all the product is actually came from the factory. Okay, yeah. If the kind of like assembly, I am the kind of like assembly local store owner, then probably all the product are actually came from wholesaler. What is actually wholesaler? A wholesaler is a kind of like a bridge between the factory and store owner. Means like that ki the home wholesaler is actually buy the entire package of product. Means like that, if that particular wholesaler is not gonna buy one or two candy, he will gonna buy thousands of candy at the one time, at the one go. Okay, yeah. And now he was kind of like a selling those candy into the store owner. Okay, and he will not gonna sell those candy in one or two. No, he will gonna sell those candy in 100 packets or 200 packets or 300 packets. And this is what it is. This is what kind of like assembly cost will depreciate. Means like that, if you're gonna buy one candy which costs 10 rupees, but if you're gonna buy thousands of candies, then the cost will kind of like decrease. Okay, how much decrease? Okay, let me tell you one thing. Okay, so let's just say factory who is kind of like a making the product. Okay, yeah, they are kind of like a making this product like a let's just say a candy. Okay, yeah. So let's just say there is a sugar candy which kind of like a something factory is actually making. The one candy required to make in a factory which cost 3 rupees. Yeah, let's just say 3 rupees. Okay, yeah. First of all, how that kind of like assembly happened? Okay, yeah. First of all, is that ki the kind of like assembly, the factory is kind of like a making like thousands of candy in a one day. Okay, yeah. He is kind of like import the sugar of thousands of kilo in a day. Okay, yeah. And basically because of he was kind of like only making those candies in thousands of way, so basically the cost of making the candy is became very less. Means like that ki in a factory the candy required to make is 3 rupees. Okay, let's just say 3 rupees. Okay, yeah. Now that factory guy, the factory owner, is actually sell those thousands of candy into wholesaler. Okay, yeah. So how much it price? Okay, 1000 into 3, that means 3000. Okay, yeah. But let me tell you one thing, there is kind of like a very different game over here. Okay, yeah. The factory is kind of like a making this product in just 3 rupees, and he is kind of like selling those thousands of candies to the wholesaler. Okay, but the profit will not gonna gain just for 3 rupees. So probably the factory owner will gonna sell this candy in 5 rupees. Okay, yeah. 3 rupees to make 2 rupees of profit. Okay, yeah. So basically 5 into 1000, that means 5000. Okay, so basically the factory will get 2000 rupees of profit from this candy, right? Yeah. Now let me tell you one thing, the wholesaler will not gonna gain a profit if that candy will gonna sell in 5 rupees. Definitely not. As a wholesaler, if that wholesaler wanted to get some sort of profit, that wholesaler should supposed to be sell those candies at least 6 to 7 rupees. And this is what exactly the wholesaler does. Wholesaler is actually selling those candies into 6 to 7 rupees to the store market. Okay, yeah, to the store owner and things like that. And they will gonna buy hundreds of candies at one go. Okay, yeah. So when this thing actually happened, the store owner is actually get 2 rupees of profit in every candy. Wholesaler. Now wholesaler is actually now the store owner. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of like confused. Okay, so store owner is actually buy those candy in 7 rupees. Okay, yeah. Now the store owner will not gonna gain up this profit. Okay, if he kind of like a selling those product, we're selling that candy in just 7 rupees. No, he have to sell those candy in 10 rupees. Okay, yeah. Then and only then that kind of like assembly store owner will gonna get kind of like a something profit. Okay, yeah. And this is what exactly does that store owner sell that candy in 10 rupees. But as a customer, this is kind of like something very wrong now, right? Yeah, like basically I am kind of like something giving the 10 rupees for this candy which actually make in 3 rupees. Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like a something scam for me, right? Like I am not really afford this thing. Like it's completely scam now. How this kind of like assembly the company is actually charging so much amount of money from us, but for making the one candy it costs 3 rupees. So it's really fucked up. Okay, so if I wanted to buy the candy, I shouldn't supposed to be buy from kind of like the store or supermarket. I should supposed to be buy from wholesaler guy, or maybe I should supposed to be buy from directly from factory. All right, yeah, you can do that thing. Yeah, you can definitely gonna buy from wholesaler, and you can definitely gonna buy from factory. Okay, but let me explain. You will not gonna buy only one single candy from wholesaler. If you went to the wholesaler and you just say, I want a candy, okay, yeah, he will gonna say how much, and you say one. No, there is no one. Like he is not selling one candy. He is saying that ki if you need a candy, you have to buy me at least 100 or 200. He will not gonna sell less than 100 candies. Okay, definitely not. He will gonna say at least I need at least 100 or 200 candy. If you gonna buy me 100 or 200 candy, I will gonna sell this candy into 7 rupees. Okay, yeah. Or then if you went to market, if you went to factory, and basically you're gonna say I need to buy one candy, he will not gonna say that. They will not gonna sell you in one candy. They will gonna say, yeah, you will gonna gain the candy, but you have to buy at least thousands of candies. Okay, yeah. So this is what kind of like some game is it? Okay, yeah. Means like that ki you are gaining the profit when you are kind of like a simply import or kind of like a product in very large quantity. Okay, yeah. When you kind of like a buy a product in very large quantity, the cost of that product became less. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, that if you are kind of like selling the product, okay, make sure that that product should supposed to be in large quantity. When you have the large quantity, then probably the cost of that product became less. When that cost of product became less, and when you are selling those product to the customer to the little bit higher price, you will gonna gain profit. Okay, so this is what it is. Okay, yeah, it's a very long game, by the way. It's not just kind of like something just a product and cost of making product and things and something like that. It's a kind of like you are kind of like looking at in multiple ways. You are kind of like doing the calculation, the ingredient, the effort required to make that ingredient to the product, things and stuff thing. There are a lot of things involved in it. Okay, yeah, and by the way, at early stages you will not gonna gain profit. So you have to be figured out lot of things. Okay, but this is really essential. If you wanted to kind of like establish a business, you have to be sell the product more price than you actually kind of like making the product. Okay, yeah, means like that the cost of making the product and cost of selling the product, the cost of selling the product, it should supposed to be higher than cost of making the product. Okay, it shouldn't supposed to be equal to, yeah, like basically is this thing, the cost of making the product is 10 rupees and cost of selling the product in 10 rupees, then also this is not really also not really good. Definitely not good. Okay, yeah, so make sure that the cost of making the product is less than cost of selling the product. Okay, yeah, selling the product should supposed to be higher than making the product. All right, yeah, so this is a kind of like one of the important rule that you have to be figured out when you are kind of like a something. Yeah, but let me tell you one thing, this is actually applicable for kind of like a somebody, the company who is kind of like a selling the product. Okay, yeah, what about a company who is kind of like a selling the services? Then what is exactly kind of like a somebody the equation for that? Okay, yeah, okay, that is a really good question. Okay, what is actually services? First, let me explain. A services means like that ki, let's just say YouTube. Okay, yeah, YouTube is a kind of like a something the video streaming platform. Okay, yeah, means customer is actually came here to watch some sort of videos. You will not gonna gain any kind of like a product, but you will gonna gain kind of like a something happiness or some sort of service. Okay, yeah, so the kind of like a product that you are getting is kind of like a something the kind of like a value or something. I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. Okay, yeah, So how do I supposed to calculate this kind of like assembly, the cost of making the product and things like that? How do I supposed to fit this equation into it? Okay, okay, I at this moment okay, I'm not really sure. Okay, but the kind of like assembly, let me tell you one thing. When you are kind of like assembly a company, or when you are kind of like assembly providing a services to the customer, okay, make sure that that services is something really that um, I don't know, like basically is this thing at this moment I don't really have the proper equation for that. Okay, because let me tell you one thing now. How do I supposed to calculate the services? A video streaming platform services. Like how much it cost required to do this thing. Like let's just say YouTube. Nothing, right? Yeah, not nothing. Like basically is this thing. YouTube is actually giving some sort of money to the customer, right? To the creator, right? So probably the YouTube is actually spending some sort of amount of money, right? Yeah. So uh uh, probably is this thing na ki at the moment I am not really sure. Okay, because like basically it's like in the product point of perspective, it's a kind of like some easy calculation. But if you are kind of like a something that focus on service point of perspective, then it's a very different game, dude. Because it depends on multiple factor. First of all, how many people who are kind of like using your services. First thing. Another thing is that key, how what is exactly your services. It is also really essential what is exactly your services too. Okay, yeah. Like if you are kind of like a provider services regarding about the massage, then probably the cost of kind of like a somebody means like that as a company you have to be kind of like a somebody giving the money to the masseuse and things like that. How much kind of like a somebody money that required for masseuse to kind of like a pay that monthly rent or monthly money or salary or things like that. So probably this is what it is. Okay, but it is not as simple as you think it is. Okay, yeah. Because okay, like basically if you're kind of like a provider service regarding about masseuse or massage services, okay, yeah, so how much it costs to kind of like a giving that services? As a customer will came into your kind of like a something like the studio or whatever it is, you are gonna provide the bed and things like that. Then probably the lotion and kind of like the person who's kind of like doing the massage and things like that. All right, make sure that the person who's kind of like doing the massage, he's kind of like a get some sort of monthly salary. That is lot of fucked up thing. Okay, you have to calculate that thing. Okay, yeah. But probably if you are kind of like doing a services or providing services in kind of like a something the a physical format, it's somewhat something that you might gonna calculate regarding about the salary, regarding about the product or spend or kind of like a something, yeah, how much you make that services as good as possible as you can. You have to be calculate and this and thing. Okay, but what about if you are kind of like doing a services in a kind of like a Instagram or kind of like a somebody the YouTube? Then this is very different game too, because there are millions of people will gonna use your application. Okay, yeah, and you are actually earning money from advertisement. The cost of required to make that kind of like a content is kind of like based on how much money that you are spending to creator. Okay, yeah, on things or something like that. So um at this time I'm not really sure, but the profit that you're gonna earn from the advertisement, that is one thing. But as I mentioned, there are multiple things are actually involved. Okay, yeah, because I'm talking about a calculation in millions, in billions. Okay, yeah, so probably, yeah. And basically the also I'm kind of like a doing a startup regarding about a service based product. Okay, like basically the artifact, the stuff that you are kind of like a hearing this thing. Yeah, it's a kind of like a some same thing. Okay, means like that, okay, yeah, we're gonna make app, people will gonna record their artifact. Okay, yeah, I will gonna earn money from kind of like a simply the people who is kind of like listening the artifact, and in between people are getting some sort of advertisement, and from that advertisement I'm gonna earn money. Okay, yeah. how much you will gonna spend money to the creator, people who actually record the artifact. Will you kind of like a spending money? Well, it's another debate, by the way. I previously talk about this thing that key, should I supposed to add the monetization system or not, and probably um like like basically it's a very complex topic. Okay, because if I add the money, it's a very different game. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I have to look for that, but still, I just have to figure it out multiple things. But regarding about this question, okay, yeah, is I completely understand regarding about that key, how much it kind of like some of the product required to make the money, how and kind of like a selling the product to the customer and things like that. Okay, yeah, these are kind of like only very essential concept to kind of like a figure it out the mistakes happen in a business and startup. Okay, yeah, kind of like a somebody find out or figure it out the calculation or kind of like a product and price of things and something like that. All right, so this is it. I should supposed to be end here, and thank you.